All right, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to some. As you all know, I'm Justin, the program manager with you on the GMS Alumni Program. Thank you for tuning in today. We have a special treat for you all. We want to bring you Northwestern in the virtual format. As you know, we are kind of hunkered down as far as getting out and about and getting across the country. So I wanted to bring it directly into your living rooms, your bedrooms, your offices, just to hear kind of what Northwestern has to offer. Of course, we are live right now. In the webinar chat, please feel free to drop your questions. We do have Northwestern staff that will be able to type directly to you in your responses, or if the question is one of those questions that can be answered through the actual webinar platform, we'll get that answer to you. So without further ado, I'll introduce Mr. Damon Williams, and he will take it from here.
All right, thank you, Justin. So good morning, good afternoon to those that have joined us today. I'm very excited to be here. As Justin said, this is a new normal. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that term just yet, but we're very excited to engage you on behalf of Northwestern University. Again, I'm very excited that the Gates Millennium alumni have joined us this morning or this afternoon to hear about opportunities at Northwestern. And I do understand that we might have some visitors and friends and colleagues from the Institute of Recruitment of Teachers, so we're happy to see you join us as well. My staff, I'd like to thank them for joining today. As Justin said, they will be in the chat box answering some questions, so feel free to put some questions about Northwestern, graduate education, and things of that nature. Again, let me thank Justin and the United Negro College Fund, the Gates Millennium Scholars Program for hosting us. I think we're the inaugural institution that's here to facilitate a conversation. I am an undergrad graduate from Xavier University of Louisiana and a UNCF scholarship recipient, so I'm very excited to be here. As stated, I'm Damon Williams, Assistant Dean of Diversity and Inclusion, Graduate Diversity Officer at Northwestern University. I report to the Associate Vice Provost of Graduate Education, Dean of the Graduate School. So on behalf of Dean Teresa Woodruff, we welcome you to Experience Northwestern. So I'm going to share my screen real quickly so we can get started. All right, maybe I should ask a question. Can everyone see the screen that we have so far in the chat box? Yes? All right. So Northwestern, premier research institution. We have great faculty across all disciplines doing cutting edge research, diverse institution. I will share some of that data in a second, but underrepresented students make up about 23% of our fall 2019 cohort of PhD and master's students. We're very interdisciplinary. I worked at a set of institutions and we have a number of cluster programs. We have a number of programs that are interdisciplinary where the faculty sit in different departments and areas, and they're compiled on a PhD dissertation committee where students can complete that interdisciplinary work. There's numerous opportunities for creative exploration of knowledge, dynamic and supportive student community, and outlets for social networking and community building. We're a world-class research university with over 50 research institutions and centers. We have 90 base school research centers and over $665 million in annual sponsored research funding. I think that that number has gone up, that we recently saw that we're about 750 million now, and we just opened up one of the largest biomedical research centers in the United States. Northwestern is located out of Chicago, Illinois. We're based on 2 campuses. Our main campus is based on the Evanston campus in Lakeshore, which you'll see in a second, and 12 miles apart is our downtown campus. So if you look to your left, that's the skyline of Northwestern downtown. You see that sand dunes, we call that the beach. This has been a difficult time for us right now because we are ready to get outside. It was 43 degrees last night. It's a little warmer today, but we're ready to see the beach and the water, the beautiful city of Lake Michigan. On your right side, you will see our Evanston campus. So lots of people don't know that Northwestern sits on the lake. So in Evanston, Illinois, you'll see on the right side is our Evanston campus. Our graduate programs are split between both campuses, with primarily our biomedical programs being downtown, but it's a 12-mile radius between the two, and there is a free shuttle. The Office of Diversity and Inclusion, which I lead, consists of 4 individuals that are full-time, myself, Erica Knight, Clark Atlanta alumnus, worked at Spelman University for years and transitioned from Emory University. She is over our retention, which is for our current PhD and master's students. There's a number of programs you'll see in a second that will highlight what happens there. Rashad Barnett, who is in the chat box, is our program coordinator. He is our recruitment specialist that leads all of our recruitment roadshows, virtual experience, our summer research opportunities program that will start in just a little over a month, and our SROP coordinator, Felix Nunez, who is an alumnus of the institution of our neuroscience program. Felix works with us on a number of things, but is co-director of our summer research opportunities program. We have 2 diversity and inclusion interns, Liliana Hernandez Gonzalez. She's a PhD candidate in civil and environmental engineering. She is an alumna of University of Puerto Rico, Maya West, and Ivan Hernandez, who is a PhD student in social psychology. I see some things in the chat box. I just want to make sure that I'm moving too fast, going the other way. Sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure. So those 2 students, along with a set of other students, we have ambassadors that are on the road with us recruiting. They are participating in some of our signature recruiting events. We have a number of retention events for our graduate students as well I can talk about. So our 2 interns, which are paid positions with some of our student ambassadors, they're there to really help us on the ground with being current PhD and master's students to let us know what's the pulse of what's happening on campus. So just some basic information about the graduate school at Northwestern. We have over 70 PhD and master's programs with a little over 67 PhD programs. We have programs across all disciplines, from our STEM, our traditional natural science and life sciences, to our humanities and social sciences. We have a school of engineering. So what there is that your interest might be, we have at Northwestern University with a global presence. TGS At-A-Glance, our fall 28 demographics, we have 62 PhD programs. We have 36 masters, which include Masters of Arts, NFA, Masters in Public Health, and our Masters of Science. We have 14 combined programs. Some of those combined programs are a medical degree with a PhD, which is what we call a MSTP, a medical science training program. We have a JD PhD. There's several PhD MAs. So essentially what that is if you're an MSTP medical science training student, most students who go off to medical school have to pay for medical school. We pay for both. We pay for med school. We pay for the PhD. All of our combined degree programs, we do pay for the PhD, but it differs. If you're looking at a master's degree in public health with a PhD, you might have to take on that unset with the master's program, but as Gates Millennium Scholars, there's certain programs that the Gates program will pay for. Some of the composition of our PhD, masters, and postdocs, or what's the composition of the graduate school. We have a little over 3,000 PhD students. You see the breakdown between arts and humanities, life sciences, physical sciences, social and behavior sciences. You see there that majority of our students are in physical science, mathematics, and engineering. All of our PhD students are fully funded for 5 years. What that means is your tuition is scholarship. You receive a stipend that we'll get to a little later in the presentation. That stipend is covered for 12 months. So you can essentially, if you finish a PhD in under 5 years or less, the only debt that you will have is zero, really, because you're getting a stipend. So there might be some student fees that are about $150 a quarter, but you can pay that out of your stipend. Our master's students were around 1,400 7% in arts and humanities, 23% life sciences, 34% physical science, mathematics. We see that most of our master's students are enrolled in social and behavioral sciences. I can tell you that our master's in clinical psych or counseling is some of our largest programs there. There might be questions around, do we offer funding for those programs? Not as much funding, but again, there are certain areas that the Gates Millennium Program will pay for. Postdoctoral trainees, those are individuals that have completed their PhD and they're in additional training. Something that people are familiar with is a residency for medical school, medical graduates. So this is very similar for students that have PhDs. They might want additional training, so that's where this takes place. So that gives you a high-level overview of our composition. Our fall 2019 data, it wasn't ready yet, but I would say that we're about the same. Of course, some of these students graduated, but as far as our PhD programs, the master's program and combined programs, that still is the total number, which is 112. I wanted to quickly just show you some of our demographics. Gender, you will find the light shade purple is male, the darker middle shade is female. Our darker purple is non-binary students. So on the PhD, you see that we have a little over 54% male, 45% female. For our master's students, we're looking at a majority are female and our postdoctoral trainees are male. So we have some areas of growth there, but that gives you demographics regarding gender. Lots of students have questions about the demographic diversity as far as domestic and international. You'll see that all three broad categories from PhD to master's to postdocs, we are 50% or more, except for the postdoc area, domestic students, which means a student that is a US citizen. If you go down a little further for our race and ethnicity, you get a breakdown of underrepresented students. You're looking at, this is current enrolled, 21% is domestic PhD, 25% is domestic masters, and about 10% domestic postdocs. The PhD and the masters, for our class that will be enrolling fall 2020, for those that understand presentations and recruitment now, we're recruiting our class of 2021 fall. We're gonna be the class that's entering this fall is around 33% underrepresented for our PhD students and around 28% for our masters. Let's see if I can hold for a minute to see if we have any questions. I don't think that I can see the questions. All right, so I will go to our two signature events. We have two signature recruitment events. So our first event is our SROP program that is offered through the Big Ten. The Big Ten, which is now the Big 16. Northwestern is known for its sports. I don't know how great we are, but we've gotten better. But the Big Ten, we're members of that association. This Summer Research Opportunities Program has been around for more than 30 years. It's an 8-week research program where we are offering our students $4,500 stipend. There's some other amenities as far as meal prep, GRE preparation, professional development. That application opens every November 1st. These are some pictures of our students at the Chicago Beam. We have a student, Maria Merendez, who has done research in our biomedical engineering area where she will be entering this fall. And then we have a poster presentation. The culmination of this 8-week program is a research presentation where students are matched with a faculty member. At the conclusion of the research, there is a research program or symposium that takes place that each student is able to perform an oral or a poster presentation. This summer, due to COVID, we are not having a residential program, but we'll have a virtual remote program that Rashad Barnett is leading. So due to COVID, we've had to cut this program down to 6 weeks, but we're still offering this program. For individuals that would be interested, the application would open this November 1st, and the group would do a summer research opportunity next summer. Okay. Our next event is Introduction to Graduate Education. This event is done at many institutions. This is a 2-day visit where we fly students out. It's fully funded for those students that apply, or prospective candidates that apply to the program. This application usually opens April 1st. What this is we bring students that are interested in STEM disciplines and social and behavioral sciences into a PhD program at Northwestern. There's an application that you fill out. There's a selection committee that decides on students, and then we bring you to campus. To the right, you see, well, to the left and right, you see some of our most recent students. We had Rep Your University, so students had their particular university's swag or shirts on representing their universities. This initiative is totally free. We pay for your hotel, we pay for your flight. You have an opportunity to visit the campus. You have an opportunity to meet myself, staff, hear from us about best tools to apply in the graduate school. You visit with faculty, you hear from admissions directors, you have tours of your particular areas that you're interested in, and then you socialize with other prospective candidates. From this program this year, I think we have 8 students that visited last fall that are matriculating to Northwestern University. So this is a great program that's free to individuals. So a short disclaimer on this program: due to COVID, we did not open the application April 1st. The application is now open, but we don't know what's going to really happen with that. The state of, I would say the state of affairs right now, we're not really sure if we will be returning to campus this fall. We won't know that until July because we are on a quarter system. So our students are actually still in class right now. So mid-July, we will know if we're returning for the fall, and that will predict if we will have an in-person residential 2-day visit, but we will offer a virtual visit, much similar to our Summer Research Opportunities program if we're not able to offer an in-person visit. So we get lots of questions about application requirements. And I want to say I can't see the questions, but at the end of the presentation, I will unshare my screen and go to the chat box and take some questions. But we get lots of questions about what's an application look like at Northwestern. So this slide shows the admissions process. So some of the application requirements: there's an online application with an $85 application fee. Gates Millennium Scholars can apply for an application fee waiver. When you go into the application system itself, it prompts you and it will ask you a few questions. You receive it if you had an undergrad GPA of 3.0 or above, 3.3 or above. If you're a US citizen, if you're applying to a PhD program, you automatically will get your application waived. There are a number of programs such as the Ronald E. McNair Scholars Program, Mellon Mays Undergrad Research, IRT, Gates Millennium Scholars that will automatically waive your fee as well. So we have committed hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for students to waive that so that we have students applying to Northwestern. So some of the application pieces: statement of purpose. Oh, I can see some questions. Statement of purpose is required. A diversity statement is optional. Transcripts are required, unofficial transcripts. Test scores, the GRE is optional for some programs. So Northwestern University about 5 years ago made the GRE optional. There are some programs, okay, hold on one second. There are some programs that still require the GRE, particularly in the School of Engineering, but our social and behavior science programs do not require the GRE. But I would ask, we will share some additional information once as a follow-up, but it's program by program, but the graduate school does not require the GRE. 3 letters of recommendation, minimum of 2 are required. A writing sample for some programs. Obviously, if you're applying to programs like English and others, those programs will require a writing sample. Something that I might say, because I know that we have a lot of individuals, particularly seniors, that are preparing to apply this fall. And with COVID, they're saying, what can I do with GRE? The ETS Education Testing Service.org is where you would take the GRE. That service has made that you can take the GRE at home. So those individuals that will be applying to PhD or graduate programs this fall, if you want to get a head start, you are able to take the GRE this summer from your homes, from your household. You can sign up for preps on ets.org and take the test from home. Those students that receive Pell Grants, I know that there is an application fee waiver for the GRE. All of that information, again, is at ets.org, or that you will have to seek information from your individual institution's financial aid office. Our application opens September 1 is when you can get into the application. The application deadline is December 15th through 31st. You saw in the previous slide that we have more than 67 programs, so they differ. I like to tell students, prepare your application for December 1. Graduate application, the graduate admissions process is totally different from undergrad. So you want to be sure that you're getting your information in. You're having people read your personal statement. You're asking for your letters of recommendation early. You're electing to submit your standardized tests and things of that nature early. Let me pause for a second and see if I can look in the chat to see if there are any questions. And I think Rashad is doing a good job of answering those questions, so I'll go right ahead. Application admission. So the process goes as follows. Your application deadlines are usually December 1 through December 31st. There are some that are due in business PhDs. January, our master's programs are a little later in March. For the PhD, so those that will be applying to PhD programs, January, February, those students typically that the institution, and this is all institutions, is interested in vetting, will get some type of information over in January or February, inviting for an interview. Most of our programs will fly you out free of charge for the particular interview, where you'll interview with the professor or the faculty member that you're interested in. You will meet other cohort members from other institutions that have applied to the graduate program as well. And then you will meet key faculty to decide on who you might want to work with. It differs from program to program, but that's usually done between late January, February, and March. Those are great times in Chicago when it's our coldest. So it depends. 2 years ago, we did have a polar vortex, so it pushed everything back. And this year, I think we had a snowstorm as well. So, but that is usually the time that that happens. We make decisions and send offers out in March. And the Council of Graduate Schools deadline is April 15th, much similar to, I know in undergrad now, they start this college sign date of May 1, but our deadline is April 15th. April 15th is the day that you can, is your last day that you can accept an offer to any institution. Leslie, I see in the Q&A that you have asked for some samples of some examples of writing samples, and we can definitely follow up with that for you. I don't have that here today, but I can follow up with you with that.
Hi, Damon.
Yes.
I think we have another question that is a common question. A student wants to know about having a GPA lower than 3.0, but having GRE scores that are high, which is a common question for a lot of students. Is that possible? Have there been cases of students being accepted into TGS programs with this situation?
Thank you, Rashad, and thank you for the student that put that in the chat box. So when it comes to graduate admissions, you will see lots of information printed about 3.3 and above. So the question is, a 3.3 or below, can a student get in? So yes. So I would say a few things about being competitive for a PhD program. So if you're looking at STEM PhD programs, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, you're gonna have to have done a summer research opportunity to be admitted to a PhD program. The difference in PhD versus professional school is that the PhD is looking for someone that wants to be a producer of knowledge rather than a consumer of knowledge. Professional degrees such as the MD, the JD, the MBA, the PharmD, those degrees you're consuming. There is a set curriculum that you will take up on when you go to professional school. You might do a thesis on a particular topic, but you don't go to medical school or law school or business school and create a different curriculum. With the PhD, you are an analytical thinker that will have your own research question that you will have to answer. So the need or the necessity to do a summer research opportunity will show that you have the necessary skill set to be successful in those programs. So lots of times we see students that might have a 2.9, a higher GRE score, research opportunities, that's making yourself more competitive. So for students that have under 3.3s, I would suggest, well, the question, this student has a higher GRE score, it depends on what type of program that you're applying to, qualitative versus quantitative. If you're applying to a quantitative program and your GRE score is high in quantitative, it will help you. If it's higher in qualitative and you're applying to a quantitative program, that really doesn't help because it's not applicable to the graduate program that you're applying to. But I would be happy to talk one-on-one with you about that particular topic. In addition, I get questions about what are some things to make myself competitive if my GPA is under 3.3? Will participating in clubs, will participating in summer research opportunities, internships, holding SGA positions, things of that nature make me more competitive. Again, for graduate school, schools want to see that you have the necessary skill set to be in a graduate program for 5 to 7 years, be successful, move through your milestones. So events that are extracurriculars that have shown that you're gonna horn in on your area. So for instance, I was a student that had a 2.9 when I graduated from undergrad. So I went to school as a chemistry major. I loved chemistry in high school and thought, okay, chemistry is what I'm gonna do. Well, when I got to organic chemistry introduced me to other majors. Organic and I did not do that well. Unfortunately, I can't see you all because you're supposed to laugh at that point, but organic chemistry introduces a lot of other individuals to a lot of other majors. So for the next 2 years, I had to decide on what it is that is interesting to me. So psychology, I was making straight A's in. So I transitioned to psychology and did well, but so my last 60 credit hours were a 4.0 within my major GPA. So often we will look at the major GPA that will offset a lower GPA overall cumulative. I also participate in internships, research assistantships, and things of that nature to make my application a little bit more competitive. But again, I'd like to, whoever has a question about that, I can talk one-on-one with you about that. I see another question that says, for joint degrees, is it possible to be admitted into just one program and rejected from the other one, or would the rejection come from both schools? Thank you for that question, Amir. So when it comes to combined degree programs, there are certain programs that you will apply at the same time. So for our MSTP, MD, PhD, Northwestern will take the GRE or MCAT that you can use for both. So if you're applying to med school, you can take the MCAT and it will be applicable to med school and to the PhD program or vice versa. For the law program, JD PhD, you can use the GRE or LSAT to apply, standardized tests to apply to both programs, but you have to apply to both. So what typically happens is you have to be admitted to both. So great question, will I get rejected from one and will a program reject me from one and admit me to another? So what typically takes place is that you can be rejected from one, but before you accept it to the other, the program might say, the PhD program might say, so I think that you're not a viable candidate for our PhD program, but we're gonna move your application over to med school, or you're not a viable candidate for our PhD program, but we're going to send your application over to the JD program. So it's essential that you're doing your research, talking to those individuals, those points of contacts that we can share. We can be your first point of contact, but every graduate program has a director of graduate studies, or what we call a GPA, a graduate program administrator, that will give you information on that particular graduate program or professional program that you're interested in. So there is a way that you can be rejected from both programs or one program, but we typically don't admit you, then move you over to a program. What we will say is that you should look at the law school program. Rashad, before I move forward, are there other questions that we have?
No, the only other question that was asked was pertaining to IGEN for Humanities, Social Behavior Sciences. And I mentioned that we have opportunities for more computational research for SBS students. But if you wanted to add anything to that, I would welcome that.
So thank you, Rashad, and thank you for whomever asked that question. So we currently don't have a visitation program for students that are in the humanities. We do have a Hispanic Serving Institution grant that's run by the Andrew Mellon Foundation, where we have selected and allowed students to come through that visitation program. But our hope is summer or fall of 2021, we put a grant in to have a similar visitation for students. But again, depending on your discipline area, as Rashad has noted in the chat box, there are opportunities that you can apply to the normal IGEN program. But again, we can talk one-on-one on that topic. If there's no other questions, I'll move forward with the researching the graduate programs. So if you go to our website, which we'll share with you at the end, there's over 67 programs. You will see to your left of the slide how the programs are in alphabetical order, and it will give you a chronological listing of what programs do we have, PhD or master's programs. We have over 60 PhD programs, including dual degree programs. So for those students that are interested in PhD programs, one suggestion that I always tell students is that you're definitely not going to apply to a school, you're going to apply to a PhD program. So there's several schools that sound great. Northwestern, Harvard, Princeton, Howard, there's lots of institutions, University of California, Los Angeles, Arizona State. So I gave you a diverse cadre of institutions. So when we're looking at PhD programs, you want to look at what are you interested in? You want to do a Google search of who are the best, where are faculty that's doing that research, and that's where you see bullet 2 is looking at the faculty in that program. So you would go to the page of your program, just say African American Studies. One of our esteemed scholars in the field is E. Patrick Johnson. You would go to E. Patrick Johnson's faculty profile and look at his research topic and see if this is a research topic you're interested in. If he does not conduct the research that you're interested in, then you would go to another faculty members to see if there's research at that institution within the institution that you're interested in. If there's no research topic that aligns with the research topic that you're in, I would say there's no reason to apply to that institution. Now, you can follow up because often on the website, some websites are not up to date. They're given keywords, but often everything's not there. So you want to follow up and ask if there's research that aligns with your research. But if someone responds back and says, we don't do that research at this institution, that's not an institution that you should apply to because you're not going to get in. Because we can't, it's not that we're not going to allow you admission because we don't want you at our institution, but we don't have the research to make you a productive scholar to graduate you. So we won't let you in. So that's a key thing. Don't apply to schools for names. You apply to graduate schools, particularly PhD programs for the particular research that you're interested in. You always want to contact programs with questions. There's lots of questions that come. Should I contact faculty? I've been told not to contact faculty. You should always, if you plan on applying to a program, contact faculty. You should be contacting myself, my team, You should be contacting faculty to let them know that you're interested. In contacting faculty, you're not going to email Dr. E. Patrick Johnson and say, hey, I met Damon Williams through the Gates Millennium Scholars webinar about experiencing Northwestern. I want to know more about your African American Studies program. That's probably going to get you an unanswered email. A best practice would be to do some research on E. Patrick Johnson, Dr. Johnson's research. Send an email that talks about that research, talks about your research, include a copy of your resume or curricula vitae, and then send that as your interests of area. And then that will get you a response. Now, what I will say about our faculty, they don't always respond because they're busy, they're teaching, they're traveling, depends on their specialization. But you should always apply. There are certain graduate programs, particularly PhD, that will not admit students into the program if they have not heard from students. So that's just something to think about. Learn about Northwestern research. We'll share this presentation with Justin, but scholars.northwestern.edu is a great area to see the scholar database of all of our research scholars and faculty that are at Northwestern and their research of interest. Some other things that you can find out in our program by researching our programs is data. We're very transparent on our data at Northwestern, so we will show you how many students have submitted applications, how many students were admitted, how many of those students are underrepresented. We will show the data underrepresented by gender, sexual gender identity, race, geographical age. That information is based there. So you have some idea of who's applying, who's getting in. We will show you the time frame that it takes for students to get their PhD or master's. And most importantly, we will show you where they're being placed, their first and second placement. You might ask, why is this important? I mean, you're not going to school just to get a degree. You're going to school to get a degree to get a job. So it's always important. And it also will give you some context to where our graduates are going. Often we meet students on the road that say, I don't want to go into academia. So if you're looking at the data of a program, for instance, our PhDs in business, PhD in business are not training for individuals to go out and start their own company. They're training to increase the pipeline to professoriate so that you can go and be a professor. So if you're looking at the data and you're seeing that most of their graduates are going to colleges to teach versus going out into the world to work, then that's not a program you want to apply to. So some tips. I think we have about 20 minutes. So the personal and diversity statement. Personal statement is a huge part of the application. I often say that there are some subjective and objective things that you can do about your application. Objective things are your GPA, your academic tattoo, and your GRE score if that's applicable for your program. Those are things that you really can't do anything about once you've graduated or if you are a senior applying. But things that you can do, subjective things that you can have some control over, are your personal statement and your letters of recommendation. So your diversity statement, personal statement, the questions are starting to pop up on my screen. So give me 1 second. Your personal diversity statements make this case why you qualify to faculty mentors to be an apprentice in their program. So this is very important, very, very important. Lots of times we think the personal statement or the statement of purpose is to really talk about where we grew up, who we are. At the age of 3, I saw a robot and I knew I wanted to be a PhD. You got to be very careful with that because is that really true? So you want to state a class, a research experience, something in the field, a faculty member, some topic that you studied in class that prompted or triggered your interest. You want to stand out, you want to use your own voice, you want to stay away from quotes and humor. I worked at Emory University in Atlanta before transitioning to Northwestern, and we would always see personal statements about the Center for Disease Control, which is really prevalent right now with COVID, but this would be a student applying to anthropology or English would say, I want to come to Emory because of the CDC. Well, does anyone see any issues with putting that in their personal statement? The CDC really has nothing to do with well, it could have something. There could be some interdisciplinary work with the CDC, but African American studies, English, history, the CDC is not applicable. So less information about the CDC or staples or centers unless it's applicable to the research that you're interested in. I'm gonna pause for a second because I see a question. The question says, lots of schools are allowing students a pass-fail option. Will the graduate school or faculty look down and accept a pass grade on the transcript, especially if it's a prerequisite in your area of interest? Great question. We all are in the same boat right now with P and Fs, pass and fail. We do understand that this is an option. We don't know how long this will last. So what I will say is that it's still early. And talking to some of our graduate programs, they're saying that they're going to really look at what the graduate student has developed as far as their transcripts so far for the pass and fail, to look at their GPA. But if this continues where we're only giving P and Fs this fall and next spring, I think we're going to have a different conversation. Right now, graduate programs and faculty are willing to say, let's waive. They're going to take the P, but it's really going to count on, that's where your extracurriculars, your research and things of that nature, your statements are going to really, really count. Rashad, I see that you've unmuted yourself. Is there another question?
There was a specific question towards MPH, MD MPH structure, program structure. I answered that one specifically, but I think this was also a good opportunity to discuss how joint programs are structured very differently, and it depends on the program. But if you would like to add anything to that, please add.
So I think you did a great job of answering that. It depends on the degree program. I see MD, MPH. Any med school programs, you're typically going to start you're going to do 2 years, and then you'll transfer over to your PhD program and complete your classwork and be writing, and then go back to med school. I think with the MD, MPA, or JD, MBA, you're going to do 2 years of, if it's med school, then go over to your master's program. If it's law school, you're going to add on the master's at the end. So it's all different. All that information of the curriculum is set online, but it just really depends on the program. But the program is set so that the student is successful. None of the combined degree programs are programs that we just combined at the last minute and put together without testing it out. So all of our combined degree programs, the curriculum is set so that a student is successful. Resources, quickly. So for PhD stipends, we have a very competitive stipend across the graduate education or across our peers. I think Stanford is one of the only schools that's beating us with a stipend around $40,000. So the difference, we often get asked questions, the differences between professional and graduate school. As a double professional school graduate or alumni, I have paid for those degrees versus a PhD, we pay you. So in paying you, you see here Northwestern's PhD stipend. Our current stipend for students right now is $32,844. That's split across 12 months for 5 years. The class that will be entering this fall, that stipend is $33,504. You might ask, why is it off? A cost of living increase is what happens there. So all of our PhD students are fully funded. So if you're looking at PhD programs, you want to look at what's the funding model. There's some students or some schools that have 9 months funding. There's other programs that have 12-month programs. We are a 12-month program. We guarantee 5 years of funding. Our MFA students, we provide funding. Some of the programs in MFA are completely fully funded for 2 years, and there's some that will provide tuition but don't provide a stipend, and there are some that can apply to scholarships that they can get a stipend. But again, there are certain programs through the Gates Millennium Scholarship that will assist with that program. Some of our master's programs, this might be an opportunity to talk about that. We do have the MBA, which I have, and several other professional master's programs that Northwestern does offer, but they don't sit in the graduate school. So there are about 50 other professional master's and professional degrees, such as the master's in journalism, master's in communication, the master's of business administration, the Juris of Doctorate, the medical degree that is offered through Northwestern, but those degrees do not sit within the graduate school. Those are professional programs, and those sit in their specific professional school. So our School of Medicine is the Feinberg School of Medicine, Pritzker School of Law, the Kellogg School of Management. So they sit there. Funding models for those schools, you will not get paid a stipend to go to those programs. More than likely, you will be paying for your education. Additional funding opportunities for those that are interested in PhDs. I tell all students, definitely apply to all funding mechanisms. Those that are interested in sciences, there's the National Science Foundation, there's the National Institute of Health, there are NSF, there are additional top-offs that you can apply for. Please apply for those. That make you much more competitive, and they also will increase your overall stipend. Now, what happens when you get an additional fellowship with the minima graduate fellowship at Northwestern? We don't combine them. So if you get a $50,000 NSF, we're not going to give you $50,000 on top of the 33 and give you an $80,000 stipend. What we do is we cap it off, I think, as an additional. I think we have students that, as you read, it says minimal annual stipend. I think a student can go up to $45,000, but we're not going to put them on top of one another. What we do is offer you research funding, relocation funding, things of that nature. So I'm going to talk a little bit about student support services. As a graduate student at Northwestern, what do you have within the program that's offered at Northwestern? So first, counseling and psychological services. We call that CAPS. You have a set number of visits that are free as part of your package at Northwestern. Office of Fellowships. We talked about 5-year fellowships that we're funding you for 5 years. There are additional dissertation fellowships that are available, so you can apply for some of those. The graduate school itself, you have a graduate school that makes sure that is there to look at your milestones, that you're matriculating at the right pace. If there's any roadblocks or speed bumps that happen, the Office of Diversity is there to help you with those things. There's academic programs such as mentoring, progress meetings, and seminars that's there for free. There's the CLIMB program that's funded by the National Institute of Health. That program is for students that are interested in STEM majors, natural science majors. There's our Searle Center for Advancing Learning and Teaching. We have several students that 12 months, as you matriculate through your milestones, the graduate school only requires that a student will teach 1 quarter. But there are some programs that require a little bit more teaching. If you go into GATARA, graduate assistantship, teaching assistantship, research assistantship. So sometimes our students are TAing. Our Searle Center for Advanced Learning and Teaching is there to provide professional development on teaching, on learning, on pedagogy, on inclusive learning and things of that nature. So we offer a set of professional development for our grad students, just as we do for our faculty. We have the graduate writing place. We all come with a different skill of writing. So that is a free resource as well. Some additional support services that are free for our graduate students is attorney resources. We have lots of students that have questions about leases and things of that nature, parking fees, things of that nature. The attorney is there to help you with that, and they're free of charge. Now, if a student is interested in a little bit more, if you get in trouble with the law and things of that nature, that's not a free resource for you to use our attorney. You're going to have to get an additional attorney for that. But for student facing services and things of that nature. You saw earlier our campus and an inter-campus shuttle. I showed you the differences of the campus of the 12-mile radius. Throughout the north side of Chicago between downtown and our Evanston campus, there is a free shuttle that students can use. So that's free of charge. And throughout the north side of North Chicago, there are different stops. So if you want to get groceries and things of that nature, that's there for you. There is a venture card that we give our students. The U-Pass is what we call it, where our students pay for this in their student fees, but they can use this year round, where they can go anywhere in Chicago on our trains, and that's free. We have an Office of Work, Life, and Family Resources. So we understand that all students don't show up single. We have students that come married with children who are taking care of their caregivers. So that office is for that population, and they have a number of events that are happening. Right now, they're offering virtual Zoom and workshops and wellness initiatives for students. Accessible NU is our office that we have for students that might have visible and invisible disabilities or accommodations. So that's a free resource. Our international office, we do understand that our students are showing up with more than one identity. So if there's visa or questions of that nature, the international office is there for that. And then peer mentoring is a service that our office, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, offers a peer mentoring program. And my colleague, Erica Knight, that I spoke of earlier with retention, that is a part of her portfolio. Again, support for child and family care. These are some additional resources, what we have here. We accommodate for students that might become pregnant, because as graduate students, you are adults, so life happens, and these are life events. So we have 12 weeks of parental accommodations for new parents. We offer some financial assistance or resources for childcare. And most importantly, we have health insurance available for our students. So we provide dental and medical, which is an additional top off for our graduate students as well. So when you receive an offer from Northwestern, you'll see that package is over $100,000. You'll see there that that's a resource for that, or that's what we mean by that health insurance. Student associations. So we transitioned from many different types of institutions. I went to a historical Black college and university. And when I got to my graduate program, I was one of very few African Americans on campus. So I looked for a social and community space when I got on campus, and I participated in the Black Graduate Student Association. So we have graduate programs, graduate affinity groups that are social identity based, and we have some that focus on particular topics that they bring to the graduate school. So we have our Graduate Student Association. Because we're split between two campuses, we do have the Chicago, we have our main Evanston, and you see a number of other organizations here. Our Black graduate student, our Community Latinx, our Queer Pride, graduate women, Indian graduate students, but we have over 60 graduate student programs. And if there's not a graduate student program that you see, you can start one as well. So that's some community building that takes place there. Campus resources, quickly, that space that you see there is our TGS Commons. That's a free space for our grad students where they can study. We have a lot of events there, so that's a space that's exclusively for graduate students. In addition to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, there's the Office of Institutional Diversity and Inclusion, where our Chief Diversity Officer is housed. We have Campus Inclusion and Community. We have a Multicultural Student Affairs Office. We have a Student Enrichment Service Office that's for first-generation students. We have social justice training, where Rashad worked throughout between multicultural affairs and social justice training. There's religious and spiritual life. We already talked about accessible NU, and there's the Women's Center. Out in there, I think we're right short of maybe 3 minutes, and I definitely can go over, but this is the staff overall. These are some ways that you can connect with us. Our email address is here, TGS Admissions at Northwestern, TGS Diversity at Northwestern. We have a Facebook group, and that is our website where you can find us. Of course, I will do a follow-up where you can have direct contact and information with me, but I will stop sharing my screen to take any questions.
Hi, David. We had one question that I asked for more information with 2 minutes left. The one student is applying to a master's program and wanted to know what funding opportunity was because the funding that he has from Gates does not cover completely the tuition. And I asked them to give more information as to what program they're applying to. But if you have any information, generally speaking, towards master's program tuition assistance and funding, I think that would be very useful for some of these students.
Okay, thank you, Rashad, and thank you to the student that, or prospective candidate who asked that question. So master's programs, again, we have over 45 master's programs in the graduate school at Northwestern. Funding is very limited for master's programs, and I think that is the whole goal of the Gates Millennium Scholars Program, and Justin's here so he can assist with me with the programs that Gates will offer funding for. But master's programs, a few things that I'll say about the master's programs. There are limited scholarships. Some of those scholarship opportunities are posted on our website or in those particular schools. If that person who asked that question, maybe you can give us information on what type of master's program, because if it's the MBA, there's a consortium of graduate schools that students can apply to MBA programs and for funding. But overall, the funding is limited for master's programs. The graduate school itself offers only scholarships for MFA students and very limited program or funding for MFA students. If they're in professional schools, I think some of our professional programs do offer maybe a tuition scholarship, but you got to think about how cost of living and things of that nature. A little unknown secret about masters is that they're revenue generators for institutions. So that's why there's very limited funding opportunities for master's programs. That's not something that you want to hear, but that's the truth. And that's not just at Northwestern, that's at lots of institutions. The master's is a 1 or 2 year program. There's some things, so there's a few things. After you graduate, you can go to a postdoc program where the post-bac, gives you a little bit more wiggle room or preparation for a PhD. There's prep programs that give you a little bit more wiggle room. Some of those come with funding and some of those don't. But those that don't come with funding, there's limited scholarships. Justin, do you have anything to add about masters and Gates contribution, what program?
As far as the programs that are allowed under the Gates program,
Yes.
or funded, excuse me.
Yes. So I see someone put engineering. So engineering, so there's a few things I would suggest with engineering. So we are the GEM Consortium, Graduate for Minorities Interested in Engineering and Research, GEM. Rashad, maybe you could Google that and put that in the check box for them, the GEM Consortium. That is a consortium that funds students that are interested in engineering. So what happens with that is there's a competition that you have to apply to the GEM Consortium. Northwestern and a number of 45 other institutions receive your application. You're matched with a company, a lab. That company or lab will guarantee funding to pay for your master's, which is typically your tuition only. And then you will have an internship with that organization for the summer, and then you will transition to a job at that organization. So that's the gemfellowship.org. Rashad has put that in the box, the chat box for us. But those are the only things with engineering. With engineering, you also want to, if there's a certain area of biomedical research, civil, there's certain outside external fellowships. Those are some of the only master's programs that I have seen funded. Northwestern will only fund GEM fellows, but you want to be very adamant and do a service to yourself by conducting research to see what particular schools have research versus public, private, and some of the other institutions.
Hi, Damon. We have another question pertaining to finding good resources for students that don't have access to people overlooking their state of purpose or diversity statement. And I think something that we can definitely talk about are the opportunities for virtual professional development that are out there at this time, because a lot of resources are being pushed out there, and and then a lot of online resources that may be available. But if you could please expand on that, I think that would be very helpful for the student.
Thank you. So a few things. So I will share with Justin, for those that in our summer research program, we're going to have a professional development workshop that we can open that up to some of the Gates alumni if they're interested in attending that, so they can see that firsthand. But right offhand, there's 2 resources that have toolkits. So University of California, Berkeley, they have a really good anatomy of the personal statement that a lot of us are using. Part A, Part B, Part C, that gives you a breakdown of what you should be speaking about in your statement of purpose or your personal statement. An additional website that they won't get mad, but the McNairScholars.com. McNair Scholars, the Ronald E. McNair Scholars, for those that might be aware, might be Ronald E. McNair Scholars, they have a breakdown of the application, and they have a whole blanket template on, I think, a workshop or just information on their website about the personal statement and statement of purpose that gives some examples of what's necessary. I like to say it's really simple, and it seems much simpler than what I'm about to say. Who are you? And meaning, who are you? Your introduction is, how did you get interested in this particular topic? Secondly, moving forward to say how your interest has been perfected, meaning I'm interested in neuroscience. So how did that interest become? Was it a professor? Was it a research lab? Was it something that sparked that interest? Give examples of what you've done about that interest. If you have attended national conference, if you have done research at your home institution, if you go into a conference, if you went away to Northwestern, to another institution, and you've been able to do research. And then close out with saying how Northwestern, or how that institution that you're interested in, will help you become the best neuroscientist, and then what you plan on doing. So the beginning of your essay really talks about, is a template that you can use, but then you just switch out the professor and the institution that you will use for that. So I think we're 5 minutes over. I want to thank everyone for joining again. Please follow up with us if you have any other questions. I think that we might have the opportunity to do some additional professional development for Gates. We can invite you to our own professional development. And for my IRT students, thank you for joining as well. And we have something on the horizon for you. Justin, again, thank you for your time today. Thank you, Rashad, for helping us with the chat box. And please follow up with any questions.
All right, thank you, Damon. We appreciate your time with us today. And guys, any questions that you have left, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will get you that information. Also, those of you who would requested more information from Northwestern after this call, I will be sharing your information to Damon so he can get you that information. Definitely.
Thank you.
All right, guys. See you later.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.